Now, you would have thought Prince Harry's failed coronation appearance would inspire him to keep a low profile for the foreseeable future. But my next guest insists the Ginger Whinger will be moping back to Montecito with an even bigger chip on his shoulder, with those Californian cruise missiles set to rain down on London even harder than before, fresh off the back of Meghan's high-key PR stunt during the coronation weekend, where she pretended not to have a care in the world, including posing for Paps wearing Princess Diana's watch. Esteemed royal author Tom Bower insists the Sussex psychodrama is about to get even nastier.
All right, so this story has been making serious waves. Prince Harry left the coronation very angry. That's the claim from royal commentator Tom Bower. And whether you believe it or think it's overblown, there's definitely something about Harry's appearance and quick exit that has people talking. So let's break this down properly, piece by piece, and try to separate what we actually saw from what's being interpreted. First, the facts. Prince Harry attended King Charles's coronation alone. Meghan Markle stayed back in California with their children. Harry flew in, attended the ceremony at Westminster Abbey, and then left the UK pretty quickly afterward. No balcony appearance, no extended public interaction, nothing. And visually, it was noticeable. He was seated in the third row, not with Prince William, not with senior royals, and there wasn't much visible interaction between him and other family members. Now, none of that is technically dramatic on its own. But when you look at the history leading up to this moment, it starts to feel a bit more loaded. So where does this idea of Harry being very angry come from? Tom Bower suggests that Harry's body language, the speed of his exit, and the overall dynamic point to frustration, maybe even resentment. But here's the thing, there's no official confirmation of that. No statement. No direct quote. Nothing concrete. This is interpretation.
So, Tom Bower, what are you expecting?
Well, I think that, as we predicted, she did a stunt. It wasn't a very good one on Coronation Day. But what's really going to happen now is they will plot something which will really hit the royal family in a way, because I think Harry went back pretty angry, clearly. And what really worries me is that the royal family is now a moving target, a soft touch. Charles showed that he won't answer back. So whatever is thrown at him, he's just going to take it. And I think this is the real danger now.
The thing is, Harry is clearly furious. He clearly feels humiliated. But what else was he expecting? I mean, he was not prepared to go to the coronation lunch. He was not prepared to stay for the concert, for example, which is an opportunity where he could have been in attendance. It was more his sort of thing. So what was he expecting the royal family to do?
Well, he expects them to apologise. He expects them in his naive, stupid way to think that somehow it's all going to fall his way. And on the way back across the Atlantic, he'll have realised it hasn't gone his way and think, well, what can I do to make their life really infinitely more difficult and embarrass them? And I think he'll take comfort, as will, unfortunately, Meghan, from those who say that the balcony was too white. They'll take comfort from the fact that somehow they're above. They've thrown in the racist...
well, ITV said it was terribly white.
Terribly white. Shouldn't it be terribly black in a white country? I mean, it is just appalling. And unfortunately, we've reached a point now where the anti-monarchists will keep on pushing this colour issue, because the monarchy is easy to touch. We've reached now a point where, unless somehow Charles makes it clear that he's not going to sit around defenceless and silent, that the anti-monarchists like that, and Hobie, the actress from Bridgetown, Olusoga, the Marxist historian given a free run on BBC, will just keep hitting, because they've reached a threshold and they now want to go further.
But the thing is, Tom, so much of that is the fault of Harry and Meghan spreading what even they admit is false claims of racism within the royal family. I mean, you look at the Bridgerton woman, you look at Olusoga on the BBC and ITV, they are Harry and Meghan allies.
Well, Olusoga was in her Netflix programme. And that's the whole point. They actually, I don't think Harry, because he's not intelligent enough, but Meghan and her Netflix producers clearly see now this is the next step to undermine the monarch Charles, undermine King Charles, and somehow find a way in which they can destabilise Britain.
Do you think that's why Meghan didn't go? Because now she can say, I am not approving of the royal institution, that's why I didn't show up?
Of course. She didn't come because, I put it very simply, she didn't want to curtsy to the Queen and to Kate, but that was just the symbol. The reality is she wasn't going to take part in it. She sees her role as being the leader of the anti-royal faction. And Harry will feel somehow torn, but he'll just go along with whatever it is so he can stay in Montecito and not be homeless and junking around the world. And that is what's so really frightening, that somehow this American woke, anti-establishment, anti-white liberal democracy has now taken hold in Britain, that somehow the royal family, the soft target, is the first hurdle to overcome as the, what can I call the diversity extremists attempt to take over the institution.
And depending on how you read the situation, you could see it in very different ways. Some people look at Harry and think, yeah, he seems isolated, maybe even sidelined. Others think, he showed up, kept it respectful, and left, no drama. So the anger narrative really depends on perspective. Now, you can't talk about this without acknowledging the bigger picture. This isn't just about one event. We're talking about years of tension between Harry and the royal family. The Oprah interview, the Netflix documentary, Harry's memoir Spare. All of that has created a very public, very complicated situation. So when Harry shows up to something as symbolic as the coronation, people aren't just watching what he does. They're reading into everything. Where he sits, who he talks to, how long he stays. It's not just a family event, it's basically a global spotlight moment layered with history. Now let's get into Bower's most striking claim, this idea that the Sussex situation is a psychodrama. What he's basically saying is, this isn't dying down anytime soon.
Of this country.
But one worry, Tom, is that it sounds like King Charles, at least when he was the Prince of Wales, is very much listening to those people. This fascinating revelation today from Guito Harry, who was the Director of Communications for Boris Johnson last year. Charles criticises the Rwanda scheme. According to Guito, Boris squares up to him at this Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Rwanda, but critically also says to Charles, do not give this speech opening the door to historic reparations over slavery. Charles ignores him and goes up on stage and does exactly that. And now he's king and he continues to open the door to historic reparations.
Well, that
for
has
slavery.
always been my great, one of my great arguments against Charles in my book, The Rebel King. It was always that he can't stop meddling. He has opinions. He will not allow his opinions to be challenged. He will never listen to anybody else if it doesn't agree with what he believes in. And he has this view, because he leads a privileged life, that somehow that Rwanda is wrong. But the truth is that if the Tory government sends the first plane to Rwanda, then Starmer is toast, because suddenly everyone will realise the Tory government can do what they like, what they promised. And this is where King Charles has a great problem. I don't think Prince William will have that, but Charles, having spent 60 years campaigning, cannot stop campaigning. He can't stay quiet. And that is my great fear. And the truth is about King Charles that for years as Prince of Wales, he took absolutely no interest in the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is endangered by Prince Charles. He was forced to go to Africa and parts of Asia. And he really has no relationship with the Commonwealth. He doesn't want to travel there really now either. And so I think what we're going to see, which is very interesting, and I think we even saw that today, that King Charles plants a tree up in Sandringham, but Prince and Princess of Wales do the heavy lifting at the garden party.
Well, yeah, I wanted to ask you about William and Kate, because they had a spectacular weekend. Very much united behind Charles now. That wasn't always the case, was it? But that is going to be a huge help for the king.
Well, we saw that the moment Harry peeled off, that they delivered a united front and buried their differences, and the differences were...
It's almost like Harry saved their relationship.
Well, saved it. And in the end, it was also survival. I'm sure the Queen said to William, you really got to make up...
The late Queen.
The late Queen, because it's vital for the survival of the monarchy. But I do think that Prince William has a very different approach. He's not an interventionist. He doesn't think about politics and things like his father did. So it's going to be very interesting, but also difficult to see how the king will interact with the political leaders and what William will do. Because, of course, Charles, in William's position, didn't stop interfering in politics.
No.
And that's now going to be...
William won't be that stupid. But I think the key question is the one that you've already raised. Will Charles be able to help himself? Because it is notable that one of the first people who he had for a sleepover, for want of a better term, at Windsor Castle when he became king. Apparently he's going to be doing this more often, you know, inviting people from various parts of the world, showbiz, sport, that sort of thing. But the person who he had on the first of these was Keir Starmer and his wife.
Yeah, and he does that because, quite rightly, he's got to pretend or show neutrality. The real problem is, what does he discuss with these politicians? Does he try to influence them, as he did with Tony Blair in favour of fox hunting and things like that? In my view, he will not be able to hold back because he has got such pronounced views. But he will put himself in the firing line of the diversity brigade, of the people who...
Yeah, because it's never going to be enough for them.
Exactly.
It's never going to be enough for them until he's not on the throne.
Exactly.
And that's what he's got to start realising.
Exactly.
Tom Bauer, absolutely brilliant stuff. Thank you, Tom. We'll speak next week.
It's ongoing, it's emotional, and it keeps playing out in public. And honestly, whether you agree with that or not, there's some truth to the idea that this story keeps evolving. Every few months, there's something new. Another interview, another headline, another reaction. It doesn't feel resolved. It feels active. So let's ground this for a second. What are the realistic possibilities here? 1. Harry was upset. Maybe the seating, the distance, the atmosphere, it all reinforced how much things have changed. 2. He wasn't angry at all, just keeping things brief and avoiding unnecessary tension. Or 3. It's somewhere in between. Not explosive anger, but definitely not comfortable either. Because let's be honest, this was probably not an easy event for anyone involved. At the end of the day, the coronation gave us a snapshot, but not the full story. The reactions, the headlines, the commentary, that's where things start to get amplified. Was Harry very angry? Maybe. Or maybe that's just the narrative people are choosing to run with. Either way, one thing is clear. This situation between Harry and the royal family? It's not over. And people are going to keep watching every move. What do you think? Real tension or media exaggeration? Let me know in the comments and I'll catch you in the next video.